Hi guys, welcome back to Creative Juices. Today is a special one because I've actually got one of my best friends on the show and we've had a little bit of internal banter between us that I haven't asked her quick enough to be on the show. So she's not all that happy with me, but hopefully once we get into the conversation, all will be well. I am, of course, talking about Lucienne. You guys will know her as Lucienne Shakir from Lucienne Coaching. I have recently just started to first name her, to be honest, because I think she warrants that sort of naming procedure, a bit like Beyonce. You know, let's just stick with Lucienne. Lucienne runs Lucienne Coaching. She also has a history as a teacher, an educator, and is currently doing some really important work with female founders around female empowerment and has a big mission around equality in entrepreneurship. So today I'm going to get into with Lucienne where her creativity started from, like we do with everyone, but also look at actually how it comes out in the different things that she does with women as a coach. So without further ado, enjoy the episode. And here we are with Lucienne. Lucienne, welcome to the pod.
Thanks.
Finally, you're here. You've been a bit annoyed at me, haven't you, secretly?
I'm surprised that you raise it because you know that actually not secretly. I'm very annoyed that I'm, eighth in line?
No, you're sixth.
Well, that's not good enough.
No, that's not true. Yeah, I think you're eighth.
Yeah, it's not good enough.
But you're here.
I gave a look to camera there because that's how important that is.
She's not happy. And the reason I start with that is just to caveat, me and Lucienne are very, very good friends. We're like busy mates. We do quite a lot together. We're going to go into some of the stuff that we've done recently together that Lucienne drives. But we are going to talk predominantly still about creativity. We're going to try and keep it professional. It's hard when it's your friend to sit here and go, not talk about the things we normally talk about the way we would normally talk about them.
Yeah,
so I've got to actually keep it a bit structured.
I actually think that I would find that quite easy to do because I'm used to being certain people and I can put myself into a box and I can be this Lucienne now or I can be that Lucienne now. But yeah, I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And because I've actually done loose research on you today.
Excellent.
I've researched one of my best friends and I know most of it, but I just wanted to go back and actually make sure I was accurate with the...
Did you check on my Wikipedia page?
No. You've got a Wikipedia page? Well, there you go. I have no idea. No.
Is swearing allowed on this podcast?
Yeah. You say it as you want to say it. So we're going to go through like what you've done professionally, what you're doing now. And I just want to start, before we do, I'll weave that in as we talk. This podcast is all about how we're all creative in different ways. And I firmly believe that we are all creative. It just comes out in different shapes in all of us. So I want to start with early days, youngster.
Yeah.
So you were born in Germany. Mm-hmm. How old were you when you moved here?
So the first time I moved back, I was about 3 or 4. And then I went back to Germany. Then I came back again. Like there was a lot of to-in and fro-in.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as a youngster, I know some of your family members. I've got to know them over the last few years and they're amazing. But what about you? Can you remember like early years? Do you have any early memories of being creative or how creativity would come out in you as a child? Because I would say, we're going to get into it, but you're quite multifaceted in how your creativity comes out. But I just want to start with, what's your earliest memory of creativity?
Okay. So I remember seeing and recognizing other people's creativity and then taking that on as something that I wanted to do as well. So my mum was an artist. She was going through her university studies. She was doing like print design. So all the rollers and the ink and stuff, all of that great sound and physical, like what we traditionally saw as creative. And the same with music. I was really into music growing up, and there's a musician in me. Yeah. There always has been. And I used to love things like listening to lyrics and really, really trying to understand what people meant through the emotion of those lyrics and the melody. So it came about through music, I think, at first. But I was much more I remember my teachers always saying to my mum, like, Lucienne is such a fast learner. Yeah. And so we'll show her how to do something and she won't necessarily think outside of the box, but she will take a collection of all of these things that she's learned and put them together.
Yeah.
And she'll do it really fast and she'll do it really well.
Yeah, you do that.
And I remember thinking, you know, back on that, and that's stuck in my head, is there's nothing really that I create that is unique or original, but it's a collection of all of these things that I see, feel, hear, and I put them together and to create something that is exceptional. I like creating exceptional things.
Yeah, you've got very high standards as an individual. Like, you're probably one of my friends who has the highest standards for whatever you do.
Yeah.
How you show up, how other people show up around you, like how people are, behave, how the content looks. Like, you have a very high standard for things. Do you remember being like that from young then, like right the way through, or has that increased as you've got older, would you say?
I've always liked things to be aesthetically pleasing, to look good.
Yeah.
And I've always had an eye for if something looks a bit, in my opinion, tacky, not quite right.
Yeah.
I suppose actually, gosh, that's a memory that's just like flooded into my head. All my life, I've been changing furniture around in rooms.
Yeah, you do that.
And redesigning rooms. Like, all my life I've been doing that. And, you know, it was a joke with my team when I was a teacher. You'd come in every week, there'd be a different layout in the classroom. But once I find the one that works, it sticks.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change. So I will experiment until I find the situation that works.
Yeah. And you're quite comfortable with changing things.
Yeah.
Like, if it's not quite right, you will make the change to see, you'll experiment, you'll no, that's not quite right. I remember for a long time, every time I came to your house, the layout was different, and I'd be like, oh, you've changed it. And I remember my mum doing that when we were younger, but you do it more frequently. I think the last few times the layout's been the same, and it's the same in the office. Every time I'd come in, I'd be like, oh, it's changed. Oh yeah, I like it. And then the next week, oh no, it's changed again. Yeah, look, you're happy to do that and keep, whereas some people would just sit and let it be, and that's not you at all.
No, marriage, left that.
Go. Yeah.
You know, friendships, no thanks, that don't serve me. Jobs, I mean, I will not stay somewhere where I'm not happy. And it's interesting around the moving of things as well, because there've been people who've obviously lived with me throughout my life, and some have found that really difficult, that I need to change things all the time. And now I'm in a situation where it's actually really appreciated.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I like what you've done. And like that
The
really
variety.
gives me a big tick.
To do it.
Thank you.
Love it. So youngster, really like sort of drawn towards music, and we share that in common. Like, we've both got a real love of music. But you started your career, I'm going to jump a little bit, by going into teaching. So you qualified as a teacher. You studied languages. You studied Spanish and German. Well done. I haven't even written that down. Trained as a teacher and then got a master's in education. What happened in between being that young girl to going, I think I want to be a teacher?
Oh, great question. So there's a picture of me stood in front of an IKEA blackboard with the chalk in my hand, and like, I used to play shop girl all the time as well, and I had like a pretend post office that my play was always working, doing some form of work. And I think I became a teacher because it's the only thing that I saw that I could do. Like, I knew the route in, I knew what to do. And I felt that I could make a difference in teaching, and languages was something that, you know, the UK needs good language teachers.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. And they're leaving, there's an exodus of language teachers in secondary schools. But then when I get my teeth into something, again, it's not perfectionism. It's just simple. It could be this good, and why isn't it this good already? Yeah. I wanted to change the education system.
Yeah.
And that is a soul destroying and heartbreaking thing to take on. And, you know, many people have said, there was an article recently written about the work that I'm doing that called me a justice warrior. And my reflexology talks about me as a justice warrior. If I'm doing something, I'm in the fight.
Yeah.
So I started teaching, realised that it actually wasn't about the kids as much as it was about league tables and stuff. And so I stayed in it for way longer than I should have done because I wanted to change the system.
Yeah. You had that fight in you.
Yeah. So it was an easy thing to go into, easy thing to do. And I thought I could make a difference. And then once I was in it, I was like, this isn't quite what I think it is, but I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, several years of heartache later.
We've all got a tolerance point, haven't we? And I think in anything, like you say, you're one of those people that is, you will make the change when it's needed. Like you have changed things when you've become unhappy and there's been nothing else you can do about it. And I would say, you know, when you're very clear on where your tolerance is, so you'll go, right, no, I can't do this anymore and I need to move on. You also, I think it's worth highlighting, you are extremely passionate about learning. Like, it's really important to you that you are learning as an individual, that people embrace learning. Like, it's one of your, I don't know if you would classify it as one of your core values, but I've been in multiple scenarios with you where you've said, if I'm not learning, it affects my overall well-being, it affects how I feel. Like, you're very driven by that learning mentality. Where does that come from, do you think?
I have got no idea. I've got no idea. And it's experiential learning more than anything. I mean, I love to read and I love to watch things and watch documentaries and stuff, but I like to learn through experiencing stuff.
Yeah.
So if it's a new skill like snowboarding or surfing or
riding a motorbike.
Yeah, like I wanna learn stuff, and it's brain flossing for me as well. You know, it just keeps me agile. I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah, it's really strong in you.
I think it's got something to do with, to tie back to what we were talking about before, where I know that there's potential in my brain. And so why would I just let that stagnate? If it can and could be improved, why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah, I love it. It's one of the things I really, really admire about you, because I like learning as well, but I'm nowhere near on a level as you. It's very infectious. And when you're around people who are curious, like you're a very curious person. It's curiosity. You're really driven by, well, why? Like, why would we do it like that? Can we do it better? Why did we? Oh, I didn't know. You're just a very curious person, which is infectious.
There's a saying about having strong opinions that are loosely held.
Yeah.
And I really live by that. Like, if I learn something that counteracts something that I already believe, I can easily change the way I think about things or believe things. But I will strongly believe that when I have that information in front of me.
But you're happy to be convinced otherwise. Yeah. So you did end up leaving. How long were you a teacher in total?
13 years.
And then you eventually decided, right, time's up. I don't want to do this anymore.
Nail in the coffin scenario.
Yeah.
Straw that broke the camel's back.
Enough is enough. Off we go.
Yeah.
And you've since transitioned into a coaching career, but I want to talk from your perspective around how did you do that? How did you go from teacher to a properly accredited coach? Now, I know you're very passionate around making sure that coaches are correctly accredited and that there's no, don't quite know the word to use, but that it's all properly done. Essentially, you're doing it, in a certified way. Yeah. So what are your certifications that you've got? Just to explain to people who are listening who may not understand what you have to go through to become a coach. And then we're going to go into the belly of what you're doing now.
Okay. So loving these questions, by the way.
Are you?
And also, I'm so into it that I've just realised that I've been pulling this face for a while. So I'm like, this is being filmed as well. I've forgotten it's on audio. It's
I'll
not just on
screenshot
audio.
it for you.
Yeah, thanks. This is a huge debate area, right? And it's really polarizing. People will have strong opinions on this. I believe that it's very important for people who are working with other human beings to have real competency in not polluting other people's lives and spaces. And as a coach, you have the ability to become some kind of guru status, someone that people will follow. And there's a responsibility that comes with that. And if you're not trained in understanding how you influence people and their situations, you can end up manipulating people and their lives. And I think that's completely unethical.
Yeah.
And we see that all over the place. So for me, training to be a coach is not just about training how to be in a situation with someone where you're asking questions and you're not polluting the space. It's about the ethical nature of your own power in that relationship. And that's why when I hear people who are coaches, who are genuine coaches who've experienced and done the lived experience, like Maybe they've grown businesses. A business coach is not a pure coach. Let's just put that out there right now. There's different types of coaches. But someone who calls themselves a business coach has to have lived the tale of growing a business in order to be able to coach. But what they don't have the ability to do necessarily is not inflict some kind of ego-based, you need to do this on somebody whose life they actually know very little about.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
So there's a responsibility in it. And I started learning about coaching when I was a sixth form tutor, and I worked heavily within the sixth form leadership team around developing a mentoring program. And mentoring, coaching and teaching are all under a certain umbrella, but they're all very different skills.
Yeah.
And I realised that I'm a great teacher. I'm great at explaining to people what things are so that they can understand it. Different people, different brains. What I needed to work on was allowing the space for somebody else to come up with their own ideas without being frustrated that they couldn't see the potential and possibility. So I engaged in years worth of supervised training as a coach, and I became really good at that as well.
Yeah.
And when I realised how much power there was in that and how much it was being underutilised, or how little it was being utilised in schools, I was like, right, I've got to do something with this. So that's how it all started. And I trained with an ICF accreditation, have my PCC. I started a PhD in coaching and mentoring at Oxford Brookes before COVID. Paused that, started again, paused it again. It's a big thing for me. And yeah, I'm really highly trained, but that is because I believe, and even if you do have those accolades, I believe you need to keep revisiting it. I think you need to have someone sit in with you, supervise you, watch a session and go, okay, what impact do you think you had during that session? Because every question that I ask you, if you're a client, and you have been a client of mine, if you're directly leading someone down a path, that is your influence.
Yeah.
So you have to be really careful. Because you're not living their life, they're living their own life. And you'll go away from that session, but they're going to be there with themselves for the next however long.
Pondering it all.
Acting that out.
Yeah. I always remember when I did have coaching with you, some of the best parts of the coaching were where, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, your questions were almost a little bit irritating, because I was like, oh no, like I'm not, and you absolutely wouldn't lead me. You would just ask me a really difficult question, or sometimes not a difficult question, and I'd just be like, well, help me. But it's very much about helping me helping me find the answer, helping the client find the answer. And actually, we do all know what we need to do, and we all know what the answers are, really.
Yeah.
We just need someone to help us pull them out. And I think one thing I've observed with you, as I've got to know you better, as we've become closer friends and we've done more things together, you are now, you really see the blend between the teacher in you and the coach. So at an event like the one we've just been a part of, which we'll talk about in a minute, you stand up in front of people and it just comes to you very naturally how you speak to people. And I think that is the blend between the teacher and the coach in you. Would you say, before we go into Lucienne Coaching and what you do and some of the key things that you're doing within Lucienne Coaching at the moment, what would you say when we look at teaching and coaching? I think they're both very creative fields. But if I said to you, what's creative about your role as a coach? Like, what would you think? Would you think, well, I'm not? Or what comes to you when I ask what's creative about what you do?
Interesting question. I've never been asked that before. So when you train as a coach, you get given different scenarios and a toolkit that you can use in psychology. And then what ends up happening over time, again, it's about taking the best bits and putting them together. And I mean, I've created my own coaching model based on that. And that is a complete amalgamation of all of these different things that I've learned. So I've been able to creatively design a coaching model that takes people through who they are being. It's about your sense of self, what I do in that coaching model. And it's fascinating to me because actually I'd never thought about this. I have so much scope to be creative. Like with the academy, I've curated and created that whole program, and it's because of what I feel is needed for female founders to learn about. And I got to design that all myself. And I had no one telling me you need this and you need that. And how beautiful is that?
The freedom to do that.
Yeah.
But that's, if you look up the definition of creativity, it is something along the lines of creating something. I don't even think they use the word original. It is to just create something. So it can be anything. It doesn't have to be, you know, a piece of art.
No.
It's, you have used your knowledge, you have used what you know of women that you want to work with. You've accumulated a curriculum, is what you call it, in your sort of inner circle. And that,
I think, sorry to cut you off, I think there's a problem with permission though with women. So on a cellular level, biologically speaking, throughout history, women have had to ask for permission to create things. And that is historically true. And so we now are in a phase where women are creating things again. And there's this instant, I feel like it's a cellular temptation to go, is this okay? Who's going to tick this off for approval? Who's going to say this is all right for us to do?
What are people going to think?
Yeah. And, you know, I find that my clients are fighting that all of the time. And this is why I think I've held off on the PhD for quite a while now, is because actually, do I need an institution rubber sealing approval of what I get? Who gets to say that institution knows more, does more than I do?
Yeah.
It's just a social construct. So I am like, this is totally part of what I'm looking into at the moment, is who gives you permission and what permission do you need to create?
Yeah, it's a validation, isn't it? For you to do that PhD, there'll be an element in your psychology that's going, well, now I'm capable of doing this. Yeah. And I can stand a bit taller. And it's actually, well, you can do those things anyway.
Yeah. And fuck you, Dad, I am a doctor. So, that kind of thing.
Dr. Lucienne. It has got a bit of a ring to it, to be fair. If you get it, that is all I will ever call you.
Dr. Lucienne.
I'm just going to
but
my friend Lucienne, who's a doctor.
Now. I could do that now without a PhD. It would, I don't know, it might be illegal. I don't know. But that's all because...
Imagine that being what you get like locked up for or something. Like she ended up in prison for calling herself a doctor.
Yeah, but that's all because there's an institution that you need to pay money to attend these things. And this kind of counteracts what I was saying about supervised hours, but actually it's my life.
Yeah.
And my ideas are valid too.
Absolutely.
So I don't have to have someone signing that off. So I'm a little bit of a crossroads when it comes to academia and science, as an example, which I've always been like, ride or die, science, academia. But actually in those circles, it's like, who knows who likes what.
There's a lot of back scratching. That I don't even know if that's the phrase, but I know what I mean.
Yeah, you scratch mine. Yeah, exactly.
You scratch mine. So we're out of education. We've had a child.
Yeah, that was fun.
Chronologically, the order of things. Don't want to labour too much because I want to move into Lucienne Coaching. But had you had Jackson when you left education? Did you go back into education?
I had Jackson, then I went back in after my maternity.
And then that was the final straw.
5 years after Jackson, then I finished.
Then you finished. And you founded Lucienne Coaching.
I did.
In 2019.
I did.
I didn't realise I thought it was much earlier than that. Because how we met actually then not long after you founded it.
Yeah, so I'd been doing my own stuff outside of school, and I'd been working on that self, what do you call it? What do you call it when you're self-employed? Self-employed status. And then I was like, no, I'm actually going to do this. And I founded the company. Yeah. And well, here we are. What's that, 5.5 years later? Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. So for those who don't know, obviously I know the business very well. I've been a client. I am a champion of what you do, just as your friend. Indeed.
I have more recently been a partner with you in an event, which we'll come on to. But for those who don't know what you do at Lucienne Coaching, in your words, what's the business about? What do you do? What do you stand for?
Well, we have a very clear mission and vision. So the vision is equality in entrepreneurship. That's what we want. We don't want any human being to be above or below anybody else. But in order for that to happen, we need equality, and you have to put a bit more resource into the underrepresented groups, which are women, Black women especially, and you need to create opportunities for them. Yeah. So the mission, the boots on the ground work, is empowering female founders to build brilliant businesses, because I believe through business and money, that is how we are going to change things.
Yeah.
We're not going to change things by burning our bras or locking ourselves. It's my grand scheme to take over the world.
Mission. And you will. I always say to you, don't I? And I don't want this to come across. Obviously, it's different for me sitting across the table from someone who is genuinely part of my life, is a friend of mine. So I'm coming to this conversation with a bit more emotion than I would with people who I'm getting to know for the first time in a podcast. But your mission is genuinely, out of all of my friends and all the people, it's one of the most important. Absolutely, because it needs to happen. I also say it's not easy to do, which we're probably going to go into a little bit, but it has to be done. And there are not many people who are willing to go through all of the hurdles, all of the judgment, all of the backlash that can sometimes come with being unapologetically, which you shouldn't have to apologise for, but being on the mission that you're on. So,
but can you believe, like in 2024, right, you're in a scenario where you're saying 5 years ago, I feel like I was one of the only people talking about this.
Yeah.
Like, that is such recent history. And then think about your feminist advocates from the 70s and how frustrated they were. Like, at what point are we going to go, no, I'm sorry, but this isn't a new thing that we're talking about. This is something that's been going on for a really long time. But every woman that steps up into that space of talking about this feels so isolated.
Yeah.
I do feel that we're getting to a point, though, where people have seen that this is a commercially viable thing to sell and aren't actually doing it for the good of the women who are being empowered.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm constantly reflecting on, is, are the women that we're working with actually benefiting from the work that we are doing together? And that is a very heavy responsibility as a justice warrior.
Love that. Lucienne the Justice Warrior. That's got to be, you need to get you a jumper with that on, or a t-shirt. So for those who don't, we're going to go into who you work with specifically, but equality is a word that actually I think a lot of people potentially misinterpret or have their own. I think everyone's got their own definition of what equality means. So I remember having a conversation with you and Jackson, your son, and you asking him what he felt equality was. And I can't remember the exact answer at the time, but what he said like blew my mind. And that's from you educating him.
The best.
Yeah. So how do you define, when you say equality in entrepreneurship, to you, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like?
Great question. So let's strip this back to the word feminism first.
Yeah.
So what does feminism mean? Feminism has become a dirty word because women stand for it. And feminism simply means equality, socio-economic, political equality of the sexes. That's what feminism means.
Yeah.
Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. So equality and feminism are actually the same word.
Thing. Yeah.
But I can't use feminism because it's so tarnished. So we use equality instead. And actually, I do feel like there is so much inequality. I think often to understand a word, find the opposite of it.
Yeah.
Do you understand that? What is inequality? Inequality is that some people are given a much better start at life than others.
Yeah.
And what can you therefore do to improve the chances of those people who are running a race with a lead brick around their ankles, you know? So for women, that's what we're doing. We're unshackling, we're allowing a bit of movement, we're training that movement, and we are encouraging people to stand up and speak. This is the biggest problem that women have, speaking their opinion without fear of repercussion. And it's not until we have that parity of voices where you go online and you see as much positivity about women as you do about men, or as many women with money as you do men, that we have an equal society. And equity and equality are not the same thing.
No.
So when we're talking about equity, we're talking about how women need a surplus of funding. They don't need 2% of the funding, which we currently have. We need a surplus. We need like 52% of the funding, not 50%, to make up for the fact that we have been so downtrodden for such a long period of time. Does that answer your equality question?
Absolutely.
I'm never sure if I'm actually answering a question or not. That's quite interesting.
It's very chill here. It's very chill. I think I answered the question beautifully.
Okay.
So who, again, I'm asking you a question. I know the answer.
7-figure, 8-figure business. And what we do is we work with the person and we don't bracket them into those areas. So in the academy, for example, we have people who are starting up or have just been made redundant and want to begin a business, or are quite young and want to start. And we have people who have a massive enterprise, and they're all in the same room because we're all learning from one another. People who are really experienced can learn from the people who are starting. People who are starting can learn from the people who are experienced. So it's not about how much money you want to make is the first thing. So I work with female founders who are interested in longevity, who are interested in doing something that actually improves the world. And it's been hard to find those women, but they are popping up more and more and more and more all the time. And then we also have the CEW, which is for any woman, whether they're, you know, at a senior level in finance or whether they run their own business, who want to have a community where they can check in and check out.
It's
accountability.
Brilliant.
And, you know, I think that service, that CEW is so exceptional. And I really want to lean into that this year and offer that. And I basically am, as you and your mum supported us with when I started, a professional friend to those women. And I won't have a warm bath with you. It will be difficult sometimes. But I'm there to support you and make sure that you step into your power.
And it really bloody works.
Oh.
It really works. Like, it's uncomfortable at times, and it's it's uncomfortable at times, and you just think, oh, like, I don't want to face that. And you do it in a way that, obviously now you're my friend, so you do it as my friend mainly, but you do it in a way that it's just like a nice, like, firm but kind nudge in the right direction, and you do feel safe doing it.
Or as Sarah Belitho would say, being put on a lifeboat, sending you out there, I'm giving you this, and just shooting it.
That was brilliant. The way she described that, when she just said, oh, she just shot the lilo from underneath me, and there I was just like floating in the sea.
And she's swimming.
If you have to
she's
do that,
now.
You will do what has to be done to get people to where you see them being. And very often in your role, you see what the person in front of you doesn't see before they do.
Yeah, but again, there's a responsibility, right? To make sure that in that example, Sarah doesn't drown. So have we got the resources to support? Do I think she's got the resources to support herself? And it's an ethical dilemma. But I stop working with people when it's clear to me that they are relying on my belief in them. Rather than stoking the fire of the belief in themselves.
There's a fine line, I can imagine, between that. But you're very attuned at spotting that.
Thanks.
You are, because there's probably been moments where I'm like, well, if Lucienne thinks I can do it, then I can.
I tell you what, there is nothing more frustrating, and people see it in me too. There is nothing more frustrating than watching someone jeopardize the opportunities that they have by just not standing in their power and not believing in themselves. And all you want to do is shake them, but you can't, because you'd get sent to jail.
No, let's not start shake unless they ask for it. But you might get people asking, can you just give me a good shake now, Luce?
People have asked.
I dread to think what some people have asked in the past. So going back to creativity then, in your sort of coaching role with the ladies that you work with, so like you say, you do one-to-one coaching where people pay you to be their coach. You have the CEW, which is the accountability community, which I love, big part of it. I haven't been able to go this week, and you feel it. When you can't go, you feel it. And then you have the Academy, which I'm also going to be a part of this year. Cannot wait. Which really digs deep into what's going on. You're helping these women really turn their businesses into the businesses that they need and want them to be. Sort them out.
Yeah.
And then you also have the Female Founders Summit, which we haven't talked about yet,
about that
which
one.
was a couple of weeks ago. And before we dig into the Female Founders Summit, when you think about those 4 things, so you've got the one-to-one coaching, the CEW, the Academy, and the Female Founders Summit, they all require like quite different skills, levels of energy, the version of you that shows up, which requires quite a lot of creativity. And probably sometimes when you don't feel it, we all have days where we're like, okay, what do you do to make sure you show up as you need to for each of those things?
First of all, what a great question.
Is it?
That is a 10 out of 10 question, that.
Thanks, Luce.
Love it.
I must admit, because I know you so well, there's probably a bit more pressure on me with the questions.
Such a great question.
Okay, well, gold star for me. PhD in question answering, given to me by Lucienne.
Yeah, it's yours, Dr. Brady.
Dr. Brady.
Yeah. So I find the CEW really easy to show up for because that is what I wanted. That's what I needed. And what's hard for me is to not change that. To not go, do you know what? That's been great, but let's do this now. Yeah. Because I know from the research that consistency is really important. So I have to check in with myself. Like, this isn't about you, Lucienne. This is about your clients. The Female Founders Summit, believe it or not, those days beforehand, during and after, it doesn't take much for me to do that. Do what I feel I was born to do, which is bringing people together, creating and curating experiences for people where they can be themselves, where they can pick up a microphone and have a sing-song. The Academy and the one-to-one coaching require a lot of self-mastery as far as I'm concerned, not to procrastinate on getting administrative tasks done, to delegate things that I think I could do better, that I need to give out to my team. So I feel like I can be my most creative when I'm under pressure.
Yeah.
And when I'm under pressure, things come out that are just, that I really like. So if I give myself a month to write an Academy curriculum document, it will be so naff. It will just be like, oh, vanilla. But actually, vanilla is quite nice. But if I get this period of time where I've got like a week and there's 20 women who need this to be exceptional, oh my God, it will be amazing.
Yeah, I'm very similar like that. I think there's a lot of, I wonder what is in that in terms of, if I gave myself a month to do something, I would write it in the last week.
Yeah. So there's a lot behind this. But if you think about a rubber band, you need to have some form of tension for that rubber band to snap back into place, right? So the trick is,
me and burnout are
it's hard for me not to go into it.
Yeah, it is. But that's another chat over a nice cup of tea and some chocolate buttons, probably that one.
Which I haven't been given today.
I'm sorry. I'm under pressure now. I'm going to have to deliver them on a separate occasion. Now, where would you say, amongst everything that you do, that you feel most creative? Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Is it a space?
Okay, so I could say like curating the Female Founders Summit and putting those people together and seeing what it looks like in my head and how people are going to feel and where they're going to go and how they're going to experience the space. Like I can see all of that in my head. But I'm actually drawn to one-to-one coaching sessions.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Where I can ask a question and we don't know where it's going to go. That is like I'm definitely in flow during that. And if I overthink a coaching session, I don't ask the questions that
that's
the client
interesting.
needs. So it's about opening up to not, I want to know the answer to this, but what is the question that it needs to be asked right now? That is a true picture, if you can picture it, of me not living up here, but living here and actually producing something that doesn't come from rationalization.
Yeah. Which is
creativity.
Yeah, a huge part of it. And actually one of the hardest parts, because Cardi talked about it when she was on, and this has come up a few times, is creativity is very often work. Like it can be difficult because if we have to be creative to a deadline, or we're having to be creative under pressure because people are expecting things of us, it sort of naturally stifles the process. Whereas when you turn up to a coaching session, and that's not what I thought you were going to say actually, so interesting for me, if you're turning up with that freedom of let's see what happens today, because you don't always know very often don't know what the client's going to come to you with, other than the things that you are actively working on with them.
Yeah.
All sorts can come up.
And the same session could have been completely different the following day when hormones are different, the weather's different. Like, it's a moment in time. I would also just say, like, when I go on holiday, I have loads of ideas.
Yeah.
My brain relaxes. I get all these ideas. But I wouldn't say, for me, I don't feel that that's creativity. I feel that implementing those ideas is the creative bit. But the list that gets written out of, I could do this and I could do that, I feel like that's just like a download. And then you've got this list, and it's like the creative bit is, which do we make work?
That's interesting, because most people, when they, with that question, go to a place. So they're like, it's in the shower, or it's when I go for my walks, or it's when I'm just going to bed, or whereas yours was an activity, like you're actually doing something. So yeah, interesting. And would you say you have a favorite creative outlet at the moment in life?
That is a very interesting thing to talk about, because I've always loved to dance and sing. And as you know, I had a nervous breakdown just after Jackson was born. And I lost my love. I couldn't listen to music.
Oh.
It's not even that I had an opinion about it. It was like a numbness where if I listened to music, it was too much for my senses. I couldn't relate to any of it.
That's heartbreaking.
It didn't feel heartbreaking at the time. It was just a thing.
The thought of that,
I didn't have an emotion about it. But then that has been my gauge of how well I am. And I think when I'm well, I'm more creative. And if I pick the guitar up and I sing, I don't write my own songs. I used to, but they're naff. They're really rubbish songs.
Really hard to do.
I'm having such a hard time. Or, yay, life is great. You know, that's the level of songwriting. I think that I can lean into the energy that somebody else has created. And when I'm feeling it, I will hear a song, doesn't matter what song it is, and I can really feel what that song is. And that's when I know that I'm vibing.
Yeah.
I also love, being with friends, and I find conversations really creative as well. Like, this is something that this is going to give me energy, things to think about over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
And I find conversations with people great, and I cannot stand small talk.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
So
I'm pretty good at that. I wouldn't say I enjoy it, but yeah, I would never start talking to you about the weather.
I neither enjoy it, neither do I feel good at it. And I can talk about the weather. The weather's important, right?
Yeah.
But we need to have a meaningful conversation about the weather.
Not
like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, what is this?
It's not great, is it?
It's like nearly August.
Yeah. Maybe we're going to have a late one. I keep saying we're going to have a late summer, because the world's changing, the planet's changing, and I think seasons are potentially... I mean, I know nothing about that subject, but I think the seasons are shifting. You heard it here first.
Very sad thing to hear. Because
it just means that
the seasons.
Yeah, but they're still going to happen. I think they're just going to happen later. So my prediction is that, like, maybe September's really nice. And if it's not, then we're going to have a big conversation with whoever is actually in charge of the weather. Basically, we're going to find them. So it's interesting that the music side of things, and if you're doing those sorts of things, is a sense of like wellness for you and that you're in a good place. I as well think you're one of those people, like you said, with friends. You and Yaz are probably my two friends where my creativity really comes out, because we're silly. We're a bit daft. Like you said right at the beginning, you know, there is a goofy side to you. There is to me as well. There is to Yaz. And I think there are people in our lives that bring out the creativity in us as well. Like there are some people where there's no chance I'm being creative with some people. Doesn't mean I don't enjoy their company.
Who are these people?
Like me and our accountant, Carrie. She's lovely, but I'm not going to get creative with Carrie.
No.
That's probably a good example.
Yeah.
Who else? I don't know. I think that's probably one to ponder on. And I don't want to put anybody on the
podcast
spot.
and say that they're not particularly
But Carrie
creative.
wouldn't mind me saying that. Me and Carrie don't get particularly creative.
No.
She probably has to in how she explains things to me.
Hi, Carrie. She's my accountant too as well.
She's amazing.
Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah. I do think there is a creativity in
numbers.
Carrie. Yeah, because Carrie has to explain things to me in a way that a non-numbers person understands. So she has to think on her feet. She has to think, okay, if I was explaining this to a 2-year-old, how would I explain it? And that's then what she does. So I think there is, I think it comes out, like we say, in all sorts of different ways. Female Founders Summit.
Yes.
Let's just talk.
Hannah.
Let's just talk about it, please.
Let's talk about it.
So, again, just for those who are listening, from your perspective, explain what the Female Founders Summit is, because I want to take a moment to really highlight it. It has just happened to us all, and we are. Don't know about anybody else, but I think I'm coming out of the recovery.
This is so funny because everyone's saying that, like, oh, it's taken me 2 weeks to recover, and I'm like, I'm fine.
Yeah. You've got some other big things going on as well, to be fair, to get yourself through in the next week or so. But
and I'm just so amazed at how willing people are to support. I mean, I know it's a worthy thing to support, and I'm sure if it were going on and I were running a business and someone asked me to support it, I would help out too. But the fact that people really show up for it is like, wow, okay, this is something special. Yeah. It's just happened. Everyone's exhausted from it. It gives me life. Like the Female Founders gives me life. It's like a challenge. It doesn't have gold medal syndrome where it's like, okay, I've done that. Now what do I do with my life? It's okay, I've done that. How brilliant. What's everyone doing now that they've been to that event? It is an exceptional event. It really is. And I find it hard to talk about things that I do well, but I have to say that is something that we do really, really well. And that space is what I've always wanted, is to be able to be somewhere, to have your family, to have your friends, to have your colleagues and clients, and to learn, as we've spoken about, to be able to move about freely, go from place to place without feeling unsafe, which is something as women that we don't often have the privilege to do. Yeah. And talk about ideas and generate ideas and see inspirational people. It's amazing.
It was just incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I think where we probably slightly differ is I was so in flow over those 2 days, to the point where people who work closely with me, one person in particular, said to me, I've never seen you so present since I've known you. I've never seen you so present. Because for me, like you, being in that environment where you're surrounded by like-minded women, actually not all like-minded, there's challenges of opinions, there's women who've come from all different backgrounds doing all different things in their businesses, but you're surrounded by people who want to learn, want to move forward. There's an eagerness to do better, not just for our own businesses, but for each other, for the economy, for empowered women. Like, we want to do better. And it really, I found it was like 2 days of being supercharged, like giving me so much energy that I then didn't quite know what to do with all of the energy. And I found the whole thing quite emotional when it wrapped up. Like, you got a very emotional voice note from me, which was just it all coming out. But for you, how do you prepare for the creativity that you have to bring to an event like that? Because you have to speak multiple times, you have to design the event, you have to
my talks are always the last thing, like, and sometimes they're not even prepared, right? So it's like, I know that I'm going to have to talk about this thing, and I rely on my toolkit being in flow. And actually, I'll look at the audience a lot, and I'll get a gauge on what I feel we can go into a bit deeper and what we can't go into. But I can only be creative if the audience is receptive to it. So we had to send someone home.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know if you know this, but did you know that women are most likely to cause another woman's downfall than a man?
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So we are very selective about who we bring into the fold and who we have there. And if I feel like I can be me, then it all comes out.
Yeah.
And I tell you what I did love doing in that more kind of traditional sense of creativity was seeing the walls and seeing the setup of the rooms and really feeling like I was in this experience.
Yeah.
Not just here to learn, but actually I was surrounded by things. And I noted Mary noticed a quote of hers on the wall around kindness.
Yeah.
And she read that quote out in her dialogue as she was talking. And I thought to myself, yeah, I've done that. I've read her book. I've put her quote on the wall. She's seen it and she's used it in what she's saying. And that felt great.
Yeah. You've curated that.
Yeah. And also the intro for Mary. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That is something that I prepared a really long time to do.
But you, from the outside looking in, as your friend, like watching you piece together the event, you know, it was a collective effort to an extent, but you have created that event, you have envisaged it and put it into reality. When I watched the detail, let's take Mary as an example, and this might seem obvious to some people, but I was a bit blown away by it really. You selected music for her to come on to through research you'd done, listening to numerous podcasts that she's done, reading her book. So one of the tracks that she came onto, you knew was going to have a particular impact, and it did. Then when you left, there was another track. Like, you pieced it so brilliantly together. When she arrived, there was a gift for her that very much ties into her values and also your values. It was just, there was no stone unturned, and the attention to detail was brilliant. But when you actually look at that, you've created it. It is a creation. It's not just, what's the word I'm looking for? You've not followed like a footprint or a blueprint of how to do it. You have created the experience that you wanted her to have. Have you always been like that in terms of visualizing how something is going to look and then creating it? Or is that something that you think has evolved as you've gone through your career?
Well, firstly, thank you for noticing that, because
it's a big deal.
Many people don't notice it. And that's really important to me. It's really special to me that lights me up, that Mary heard that song and I see those things and I'm like, yeah, I've done that well. I've done that well. I think, to answer your question, I think I do see it. And I'm like, I think this would be a great idea. Like the bangles for entry, rather than having, we're doing something really good for next year. A point of difference. Like, who tells you that you have to do it like this? Wouldn't it be great if we did it like this and it wasn't naff?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, high standards again.
It goes back to that. Yeah, you said that at the beginning.
Yeah, but if I were a guest and I wanted to feel special, what would I want? I'd want to think they'd done their research, that I was made to feel comfortable by having one of my favourite songs come on when I was there, that they were asking me questions that made me feel safe and grounded, that I didn't pounce on them when they showed up at the door and fangirled them, which I really wanted to do, but I didn't. You know, that I acted in a way that was, for them, the best experience.
Yeah, very kind, and it was very levelling as well. Like, we value you. You're an important person, but we're equal here.
And like, taking her home in the camper van.
I mean, Lucienne, basically, Mary was late for her train, wasn't she? Because she was enjoying herself so much. So she was late for the train. I'm on the side with Mary's bag and hat, having the best time of my whole life. Like, I've got Mary Portis's things. And Mary, very quickly and professionally, you guys wrapped it up because Mary had made a point she was running late.
For the train.
Lucienne basically just whipped her out of the venue, put her in Lucienne's new camper van and drove her to the train station in her camper van. I then realised that Mary and Lucienne had gone and was like, hi, everyone. Now we're going to have some drinks. And it was just one of those moments where you go, it was just brilliant, like how down to earth it was. And there was a lot of that in the event around, I think, going back to when we're creative and when we are building things, there's a huge vulnerability in it because we are the Female Founders Summit. It's the first time it's been in Northampton.
You're being judged.
It's quite a big event for Northampton. It's also quite a big message for Northampton. There was 4 venues, 160 women, 20 plus speakers, a Mary Porter. So there was a lot going on. And when you're piecing that together, it's really easy for people to judge. And there was a huge message through the whole event of, if the tech slightly goes a bit wrong, it's okay. It's absolutely fine. People were really comfortable going, oh, Luce, there's a thing on the screen. Oh, yeah, sorry, let's get that off. There was no veneer of perfection that you talk about so much. And it takes a certain person to do that. That developed.
Yeah, but it's a bit opposed, isn't it, to this quality thing, this whole. So you'd think that it was opposed to it, but actually, I believe that by talking about those things, you actually improve the quality of what it is that you're bringing to the table. What were you going to ask me? I'm sorry, I really interrupted you.
No, it's fine. Do you, Lucienne, do you believe everybody has got creativity in them?
Oh, well, by the nature of consciousness and a brain, yes. Whether or not that creativity is good is obviously subjective. I mean, yeah, probably. But some people's idea of what creative is just shit. It's just not very good, is it? I don't know. I mean, I find that quite astounding sometimes when someone's like, oh, I'm a musician and I've written a song, or I've made a cake, and they, I mean, I love that they love it, but also, how can you love it? I mean, you know, I find that so confusing, an overinflated idea of your own talent, right?
Yeah.
But I don't.
It's like me saying I'm a good rapper. Hey, George, I'm really good at rapping.
Well, you might actually be a good rapper. I don't know.
No.
I think it comes down to people's bars of, you know, my 100% might be somebody else's 20%, right?
Yeah.
So if they think they're creative, fine. But do I think they're creative or creative in a good way? No.
That's possibly one of the most honest answers we've had. I think, again, to quote Cardi was saying, yes, she believes there is creativity in everyone. She said, but not everybody exercises it. Oh, to your point, not everybody exercises it well.
Yeah.
Or channels it in the right way.
Do I like their creativity? Questionable.
To be confirmed.
Yeah.
Possibly
but
not.
who's to say that I've got the deciding factor on what creative is and what good is, you know? But according to me.
Yeah. And you have a standard of quality that you would observe people's work by, and everyone's standard of quality is different.
Yeah.
Good answer. I like that one. Do you have any advice for who am I going to ask you about? Because I do slightly tweak this question depending on the guest, but I'm going to say, what would be your advice for any aspiring people out there who know that what they have to say is not currently being said the way it needs to be said? They want to do it, but they're just, something is just hanging them back.
I see this all the time. And who are you doing this for is what I would say. Like, if you are showing up on social, it's so easy. We're so intuitive as human beings. We can see when something's curated. A lot of my content at the moment, I feel, is quite curated. It's not really, I'm being told to talk about a lot of things, and I'm talking about these things and I'm giving advice, but it comes from a place of here rather than from here, right? So the advice I would give is you need to exercise your intuition. You have to spend some time being with who you are as a person. And what we are is constantly distracted. And the more we can learn to actually sit with ourselves, and this sounds like such an easy thing to do, 5 minutes, sat on the floor, not doing anything. Like, who actually does that unless it's to meditate? You're not meditating, you just sat being who you are, noticing what's going on. And when you start doing that and you start asking yourself the question, what do I know is intuitively needed? You begin to open that valve a little bit, and then it's having the brave element of behavior where you're like, I'm going to take action on that intuition.
Yeah.
And everything else that you do is for someone else.
Yeah. Full stop. Yeah.
Who are you doing it for?
And I've watched you as a firstly a client, but then very soon after someone who would have classed you as a friend from quite early on, and now as a close friend. You've had to battle with doing that yourself. So really, there was definitely from knowing you early on, there was definitely a step change in how you spoke to the world about what you're doing. I would say probably like a year, 18 months into me knowing you all of a sudden were just like, nah, fuck it.
Yeah, well, it's a filter
The switch
that
just
comes out of you, and it's institutionalized behavior.
Yeah.
So when I leave teaching, I'm this, let's say I'm a cup full of pebbles and I've got water in there. Like, it takes a while to drain that out and to be who you're meant to be again. I wasn't allowed to show my shoulders. I wasn't allowed to have dyed hair. I had to let someone know if I was using the toilet. I had to, as a teacher, you have to clock in and out, so people need to know when you're on site. It is dehumanizing behavior, and that takes a really long time to get out of your system. And so I think there's so much more that I could be saying. There's a huge amount more that I could be saying. I'm still not saying it. And that's because I don't know if I am ready yet.
Yeah.
And I think in each of our stages, we will only do what we're ready to handle.
Yeah.
So when you start actually speaking up, if you can't deal with the repercussions of what you're saying, you won't say it.
Yeah, you're not ready.
Not ready yet.
And how have you coped, would you say? What are the ways you've learned to cope with when people really do come at you? Because there's been some instances where people are really quite blunt, unfiltered. There's been some really not great stuff.
It depends how much I care about their opinion, really.
Yeah.
If it's someone I don't know who is clearly an idiot, they can say whatever they like.
Yeah.
It's when there's people who I actually admire who might look at what I'm doing and say, do you know what, that's actually X, Y, and Z, then I would be quite heartbroken. But actually, I need to lean into the fact that people aren't going to agree with everything that I do. Lots of people come at me for, how can you be about equality when you only work with women?
Yeah.
Right? And part of me is like, well, if you don't know that, I don't really want to explain it.
Shouldn't,
actually.
The fact that you're asking that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But then if somebody said to me, okay, but what opportunities do you offer for men who might need the support? I'm like, okay, like, well, maybe I need to think about this a little bit.
Yeah. It's like the female founders. There will be opportunities as the Female Founders Summit develops there will be a place for men at that event. In what guise, who knows just yet, you're figuring that out.
Well, there were two very incredible men. One man who was the father of the Young Woman of the Year, who had, quote, the time of his life. Like, he actually enjoyed himself so much. And he was like, I can't believe how brilliant this is. He's a cricket coach. Like, he loved it. And then Louis, who is in the council, who has been an absolute supporter and ally. And it's about the quality over the quantity. We don't need 50 blokes in there who want to come along to see what it's all about. We want people who really want to learn about the issues and change the world.
Are also on the same, believe in equality, in entrepreneurship, and believe in what actually sits behind doing that, like the work that is required.
The problem with that, Han, is that no one with power gives it up. No one does.
Yeah.
So we have to find men who have power, who want to learn.
Yeah.
And they are so rare. They are so, so rare.
I don't really know what to say to that.
Sorry.
Just got to invite them ones. We'll find them.
They are there.
Yeah.
But it's human nature. You don't give up.
I suppose it's also as well,
position of power.
Louis is likely, it's about our networks as well. Louis is likely to have people in his network with similar values to him. Poppy's dad is likely, the kind of men they are, they're likely to have similar people, you would think, in their network. So it's Poppy's dad and Louis will then go and tell 10 of their friends maybe. And then those friends, you know, it's that ripple effect, hopefully. That's maybe my romantic.
Yeah, well, that's like
my rose-tinted glasses coming in.
Pareto principle, the 80-20 principle. Do you focus on the 20 people who are believing in your cause, or do you focus on the 80% who are against it?
Yeah.
And you're just going to wear yourself out focusing on that 80%. So let's work on the 20% and change the world that way.
Yeah, can't believe I just said double down.
Double down? Why
double
don't you
down
double down?
Don't know. It's just a bit.
I think you need to let that go.
Low-hanging fruit. Anyway,
Hannah,
Lucienne,
where do you think you are the most creative?
Oh, with my friends, I think. With my friends at the moment, that's my.
Have you got more friends than me?
No, just you, mate. Just you and Yaz. With you, with Yaz, with Paul, with the team here. I would say, yeah, it's the people I'm around at the moment more. And also the gym.
You're creative in the gym?
Yeah, like mentally, my brain just relaxes just enough, but not too much. Ooh. And I get ideas in the gym. But like I've never thought of it the way you said, where the creative download, the initial download happens in the gym. Actually, if I think about where I then put that into action, it's probably like really inconveniently at like 8, 9 o'clock at night when I'm at home trying to not do work. And that's when it comes out. But at this moment in time with my friends, I think.
Right.
Yeah. Not supposed to flip the questions. Friend with you, Lucienne, with you. Right. Ready for quick fire?
Go for it.
I'm going to shake you into the quick fire zone. Right. Question 1.
Okay.
If you could invite 3 creatives, dead or alive, to a dinner party or to the female founder summit. Let's go dinner party because that's what I normally ask.
Okay.
Who would they be?
Frida Kahlo. Like what was she doing?
Yeah.
How?
You got to get in there and ask some questions.
Like, who are you? who even are you?
We did
Just a minute.
Just a minute, please.
Just a minute. I need a minute for this one. Frida Kahlo, I would love to have a wee little chat with Beyonce Knowles.
I was going to say, like, how is it taking you that long to say her name?
Well, I was thinking, you know, that's very obvious.
No.
I don't know, though, if it were about, like, creativity. Frida Kahlo, Beyonce Knowles, I would like to have a wee little chat with Van Gogh.
Oh, you've pulled out the absolute big guns there.
He's the only artist whose life I've been genuinely interested in and whose work I've been and seen on multiple occasions in different countries. And I think his was such a story of plight. Yeah, Van Gogh.
Yeah, brilliant. That's a great one. Is it true that with Van Gogh, because I don't know his story all that well, I know what the minimal bits that most people know, but his work became world renowned after he died.
Posthumously.
Yeah. He really struggled as a living artist, didn't he?
Yeah, he was broke.
Yeah. Incredible. Yeah, good one.
Thanks.
What a table, by the way. How would that pan out? Frida Kahlo, Beyonce, and Van Gogh, and you.
Yeah, I think we'd have a good time.
Yeah, I think there'd be no small talk.
I think we'd eat paella.
Ooh. That's an interesting one.
I think we'd drink red wine.
Red wine.
We'd have some red wine.
Red wine and paella.
And paella.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and for pudding, we'd probably have a pavlova or something, you know.
Paella and pavlova. There's a joke in there somewhere, but number 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's 3 in total, so you can relax a little bit.
On this one.
Yeah. No, that's fine. If your work was edible, what would it taste like? I love this question so much. This is my favourite part of every episode.
Brilliant question.
If your
and
work,
I know the answer.
Oh, love it.
Straight away.
Go
I'm
on, then,
like,
hit me.
This is the answer.
compose yourself.
It is the most sublime, freshly made Black Forest Gatto.
Oh, talk me through the reasoning. Or is there
You
isn't?
can't get better than a Black Forest. It's got the chocolate.
Yeah.
It's got the cherry and raspberry fruit.
Mm-hmm.
It's sweet. It looks really good.
Bit decadent.
You're not hungry after you've eaten it. It's underestimated, but exceptionally good.
I absolutely love it. You're not hungry after you've eaten it. I can apply that to the Female Founders Summit in a big way. Like there was no hunger for any more. My cup runneth over.
Do you know what though? A pavlova might even be a pavlova.
I like the Black Forest Gatto.
But the Black Forest Gatto has a bit of German. You can have it with a bit of liquor as well. So it has like a cherry liqueur.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. I like it.
It's not a pizza.
No, but it's your work is more glamorous than a pizza.
Pizza's good, but it's a Black Forest Gatto.
Yeah, like it.
Excuse me, what's your answer to that
No,
question?
we're not allowed to play that game.
Please.
I can't remember. People have asked me this. I can't remember what I've responded with. I think at one point I said bread and butter.
It's Campbell's mushroom soup.
Please explain yourself.
Well, again, it's really good, right?
Yeah.
The marketing of it is phenomenal, exceptional.
Classic.
It's the soup I would choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a soup that you would choose.
Yeah.
Our work is a soup. That's a compliment.
It does the job.
If the Brady Creative was a soup, you would choose it.
Campbell's mushroom
soup. It's also, the branding is so good and so cool that you can reuse the tin as a utensil holder or a pen holder. Yeah, so maybe it'd be that. I don't think it would be though, and I don't know the answer.
Okay.
Because we're not allowed to flip the questions on me.
Okay.
Should have told you that rule.
Okay.
Question 3, and the final of our quickfire round.
Okay.
If you could give Lucienne Coaching a soundtrack for the last 5.5 years, a song that comes to mind or a genre that comes to mind.
Okay. I'm
What would it be?
gonna sing it for you.
Oh, go on.
It's going to be a blend of
I'm
two
ready.
songs. We might have to edit this out depending on how it goes. Okay. It starts like this. I don't know if you'll know what this is.
No, I'm poised.
Cast off the shackles of yesterday, shoulder to shoulder into the fray. Our daughters will adore us, and they'll sing in grateful chorus. Well done, Sister Suffragette, followed by supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
It's a beautiful blend. Where's the first song from? Why do I know
from
it?
Mary Poppins.
Yes, okay, that's fine.
Because Mary
Even George
Poppins is
nodding.
like the film of my life.
Yeah. Love it. Absolutely love it. What a mashup. Someone's got to release that. You heard it here first. If that comes out in the charts, we're having some royalties, please.
Yes.
Lucienne,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Mein Spatz, as I call you.
I'd like to take the opportunity to say you're an absolute legend.
Thanks, mate.
Keep doing this.
Thank you.
Creative juices. I mean, who came up with the juices bit?
Me.
Yeah, of course you did. Amazing. Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure. I was apprehensive, I think, because I wanted to. This is going to sound really weird, but when you talk to people or you have your friends involved in your content, I think you have I want to do a really good job by you because you're in my life.
You're such a deep little cherry.
I am such a deep little cherry. I really am.
You're a deep little cherry on top of the Black Forest Gatto cake, and you don't need to worry about any of it. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks, Luce. Thanks for listening,
Thanks, Ham.
guys.